Hi everyone, Rachael here. Welcome to episode number 9 of the Walk the Talk podcast. And today I have part 2 of the interview and episode with Simon from Body Composition. And I have to say, this is probably one of my favourite episodes of the podcast ever so far. There is so much good stuff in this interview. It's phenomenal. Honestly, you're going to love it. We cover listener questions. So if you have asked me a question, if you've sent a question in via email or via my Facebook community, then your question is probably answered within this podcast. So sit back, grab a cup of tea, go for a walk or drive safely, depending on where you're listening to the podcast. Enjoy the interview and I will see you on the other side. All right.
I got my beanbag.
Welcome back, Simon, to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. I really appreciate the fact I've made it for a second time. I feel honoured.
Oh, I think actually a lot of my audience are like, oh, when's part 2? When's part 2? So here we are.
Oh, that's great to hear.
And if you're listening, this is one of the podcasts that I am answering your questions. So listeners of the podcast have sent in some questions and I'm going to put 2 of those questions to Simon today and we're going to have a discussion around them. I've got my opinion on how I would answer them and I'm looking forward to hear Simon's answers as well.
Let's just hope they don't conflict.
I know. So if you've sent in a question, I have got a lot of questions to get through. So if I don't answer your question at the moment, you can be rest assured that your question will be answered on a future episode of the podcast. And if you are not listening to these podcasts in order, then your question may have already been answered. So you might want to go back and work your way from start to finish. Nice little plug to get you to go and listen to the rest. So shall we get straight in about it?
Totally. I'm ready when you are.
Okay, so this question is from Holly. And Holly is asking there seems to be a lot of conflicting information about various foods that are considered healthy, air quotes. As an example, coconut milk and coconut oil was all the rage, but now people are saying it isn't as healthy as it was once thought to be. How can we properly educate ourselves on what is healthy food versus the next big fad or something that is taken way out of proportion? Sorry if this is a bit long-winded.
Mate, shall I just go off on one here?
Yeah, isn't that such a good question
right.
though?
It's a very good question. However, this is just... The thing is, what I always see things. I love the fact you air quoted healthy and stuff on the lines of that, and we see this all the time within our industry and within the media, within the news, everywhere now. Foods are becoming scare tactics. We're getting superfoods. Foods are just picking up labels as good, bad, healthy, clean, X, Y, Z, and I think that in itself leads itself down to a whole kind of like kibosh of information, and it leads people to think that certain foods have certain superpowers and other foods are bad, which is great because some foods are more nutritious and things along the lines of that, and it makes you feel good. But then let's think about this from the flip side. What happens when people eat a food?
I'm losing your connection.
So as soon as people start to do things along the lines of that, or is the signal gone?
It was going off and on.
I'm trying to work out. No, I was just trying to say, when someone eats something that they perceive as bad or what they've been told is bad, it has this whole cascade of negative emotions, doesn't it? So you get guilt, you get shame, and you get all these certain things. And I think actually labeling foods itself has got its own dangers, like hidden within it. Yeah,
that's it. I suppose it's the same as labeling food as being good or bad.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the beauty of it is, and if we cut nutrition down to its absolute basics, it is the devil lies in the dosage, isn't it? It's just energy exchange. So if you've got that energy balance right, you're rocking. Obviously, it's going to serve you better from more nutritious foods.
Yeah, that's the thing, and it's yes, like taking Holly's example there is coconut milk and coconut oil was all the rage, and it had a lot of media attention probably about 5-6 years ago now. It kind of started to come to the surface, and everyone was saying that it was healthier than other oils and it would help you burn fat and that you should put it in your coffee. And before we before we know it, we're out of control and everyone's like turning into a coconut.
Exactly. Well, you can see the trend now. The next one coming through into the market. It's what is the next biggest marketed thing, isn't it? So the next one coming through, I think, is going to be this CBD oil, which I've seen popping up everywhere. Do you know what I mean? So I can already see that this will be the next thing.
That's it. And that's about educating yourself in a way that you can actually start to see through the bullshit of big companies and the way that things are marketed. When you see things in newspapers or in articles on Facebook that when you click the link it goes to some really random like magazine website, and you can kind of almost like instantly know that what you're reading is a bit pseudo science based or non-science based completely. And it's about having an awareness around that. And generally what I would say is to people, if something has an advert or has to be pushed by the media or media articles or television programs, generally if it needs to be pushed in that way, it's probably going to be the next big fad.
Exactly. I got a really good example of this. Like when you think back to it, like when your grandparents and all that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? They were healthier, they were leaner, X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
But now we've got the most nutrition information readily available. We've got the most marketed products. We've got the most coaches. We've got the most readily available information. However, we're kind of at that period now where everyone's the most confused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's just, think about it, like if 30, 40 years ago, this wasn't a question. There was less health issues and X, Y, Z. But suddenly we've become greater and we've become more knowledgeable in this field. But yet everyone's still lost.
We've got so many products to choose from now. It's unbelievable. I popped into Holland and Barrett earlier today. I never go into that shop because I order anything I need online generally, but I needed something. And I went in to have a look and I was just like bombarded with all this marketing, and I was like, whoa. And some of it is so strong that even I stopped to look at it and I'm like, oh.
Exactly.
Wow.
I think a great example of something that's done this is branched chain amino acids. I know this is completely different and off the topic from almond milk, but within the industry, for example, branched chain amino acids, everyone was on them. Everyone was prescribing them. Everyone was telling them X, Y, Z. And the marketing and the hype completely was way ahead of the science on it.
Yeah.
But now when you actually look at the products, it's like, oh, it's like a fart in the wind, isn't it?
Yeah, I may as well have just poured all that money down the toilet and flushed it straight away. Yeah.
That's all it is. It's like the marketing to get it in front of your eyes, build a hype around it.
Yeah, and that's, like you said earlier, it's the dosage of these things that is the most important thing. And how do...
It's nutrition in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yeah. And Holly's question, the second part of her question there, how can we properly educate ourselves on what is healthy food versus the next big fad? Well, here's how I would answer that question. Well, I've already kind of touched on that. If it has an advert, if it's in the newspaper, that kind of thing, it's probably going to be the next big fad if everyone's talking about it. Second thing is you need to kind of take responsibility to educate yourself as well. Like, use a bit of common sense most of the time. When it comes to these things, and also understand that healthy and unhealthy foods, I get asked this question all the time. At the end of the day, it comes down to there's no such thing as a good and bad food, but there are good and bad quantities of foods in direct relation to what your goal is. Would you agree with that?
Totally agree.
And obviously there are some foods that are more nutritious than others, but if you were to put coconut milk, if you were to give me like a glass of coconut milk and sit it next to a glass of cow's milk, which one of them is healthier, Simon?
Which one's got the most calories in?
Yeah.
I mean, I always giggle about this. Can you remember the bulletproof coffees?
Everyone
putting butter and coconut oil in the coffees, thinking it sped up fat loss.
Yep.
It always made me smile. Like this. No one changed the nutrition or did anything different, but everyone started doing like putting like oils and stuff like that in. and they were doing like 3-4 times a day. And when you actually worked out with some people why they were actually gaining weight or why they weren't moving, they were putting just hundreds of calories into the coffees. But it was the media hype, wasn't it? We got told to put coconut oil in our coffees.
Yeah, I did. I actually quite liked the taste of that.
Yeah. If it was accounted for.
Yeah, exactly. That was long before I was trained properly in nutrition. But I hope that kind of answers your question, Holly, because it's quite a hard one to answer. Like, if I was to have a teaspoonful of coconut oil and 1 teaspoon and a teaspoonful of olive oil, for example, and the other talking about the oils, which one is healthier? Well, in relation to what? Coconut oil contains medium chain triglycerides. Olive oil contains monounsaturated fats. Coconut oil contains more saturated fat. So which one of these do you want more of today?
Well, also one man's poison can be another man's remedy, can't it?
Yeah,
like you could have issues with those, or do you know what I mean? So it's what's correct. This is why I strongly believe, like with anything that you're doing, like if you're not passionate about it, then get someone to help you with it.
Yeah.
I think a good little thing for Holly's question is if you're getting the results of what you're doing, great. If you need more education, the first thing that not a lot of people do is listen to the body. What's your body telling you? Are you getting the results that you need? And then if you really do need that, actually get someone to sit with you and become more aware of what's working for you, your body, and get more of a plan for you specifically, instead of just jumping into this like one method that works this way, carb backloading or XYZ. It's like what works for you as an individual.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your remedy?
Another thing I'm going to just mention as well, where we're on the subject of this, and like without it becoming a bit of a rant, but years and years ago, and I still do this actually, just because I actually like the taste of things. But another thing that Holly has brought up this week has been testing recipes. So she's been making scones, I think it was, and she sent me a message saying, "Here's the ingredients of this recipe for scones, pumpkin scones, and how can I make it healthier?" She said, "Should I swap the sugar for honey? Should I swap the flour for gluten-free flour? Should I swap the butter for coconut oil?" And I said to her, "Well, this reminds me of when I used to try to make things healthier, swapping flours for almond flour, swapping
sugars for
fats, and before you know it, you've got like a scone that's sitting in front of you that's like 900 calories. So if you want to put weight on and get more nutrients, or a more nutrient-dense scone, then yes, swap your flours for nut flours and all that jazz. But I say, like, don't tamper with it if it's not broken. Like, if you want to make a pumpkin scone, make a fucking pumpkin scone. Like, there's no need to, make a batch of 12 of them and eat all of them in one go. Like, it's all relative to what your goal
That's
is.
where I fall down.
Yeah,
I get carried away.
Yeah, me too. That's why I rarely bake, because I just know I can't trust myself. So yeah, hopefully that's given you a good insight to that, to the answer to that question, and it's probably left you with some more questions as well, but you can fire them my way if you want.
Boom.
Okay, moving on to the next question. This question is from Hayley. This question is quite vague in a way, but hopefully we can address it for you. "Hi Rachel, my mum basically only eats when she's hungry. She can go for days without food. However, she takes about 30 to 40 tablets a day, pills, she doesn't say what for. Which have
medical? Or
medical, yeah, medical. And they've made her gain weight. How can she start to become healthy and try and lose the weight? She has mobility problems. She's just been told she has heart problems as well, so can't run or anything." Isn't it funny how people associate losing weight with running?
Yeah.
How can I help her to overcome the mindset she's in? She wants to lose weight, but nothing is working, and she hardly ever feels hungry.
I think the simple shift of focus here needs to be, instead of driving your efforts and your energy and your sight into what you can't do, it's actually taking a much bigger overview of what can you actually do. So, for example, if there's still weight gain happening, So I presume obviously inactivity levels are creeping in or setting in, so activity levels have reduced. But also actually look at the current eating habits. So although there might not be a lot of food going in through the day, what's actually going in the evening? Is there like a meal going in that's completely blowing things? Is there, do you know what I mean? Fair enough, the medications could be having X, Y, Z effect. However, at the end of the day, that energy balance still has to be in favor of weight gain for that to actually continue and for that to happen. So, because you're only going to get so much water retention from medication, aren't you?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I mean, if you can, I presume looking at the actual eating habits or the behaviours, is it a case where there's not a lot of eating going on through the week and the weekends are sending things way over? Is it coffees? You might not be getting them through foods, but are you having lattes, which are 200, 300 calories at a time, and having 4, 5, 6 of those a day now?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's very difficult to answer a question like that. But also, just to mention that it doesn't matter, what time you eat or how big a gap there is between meals. If you didn't eat anything all day and then had a large meal at night followed by a few snacks before bed, you could easily still be over your maintenance calories for that specific day. And the same if you were to not eat for a couple of days and then smash, 3 or 4 big meals because you end up really hungry, or if you eat the vast majority of your calories at the weekend. Like, it doesn't matter what time you eat.
Not at all.
If you eat more calories than your body is burning off, then you're going to gain weight. So if your mum is struggling, if your mum is struggling to lose weight, just like Simon said, it's important to look at her overall food intake, because if she's gaining weight and not losing it, the bottom line comes down to that she's eating too much.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think as well, the eating habits and the drinking habits could have remained the same, but now that whatever's happened has reduced the activity level, so there's not as much energy going out per day.
Yeah, and she did say that she has some mobility issues, so I'm guessing.
But I mean, you could flip it to the simplistics of, if, for example, does it mention they were still able to walk, I presume is
it just
that
says, no, it just says that she has mobility problems and she can't run.
Okay, so no big impact work. So I presume if that's still the case and walking is still doable, it could something as simple as getting a simple pedometer, seeing how many steps a day the person's taking or your mother's taking, and then the next day just trying to beat that. So try and get another 500 in. The next day try and get another 500 on top of the first 500, and just building that habit of getting more activity in. That could be something. And there the focus is still switched to what you can do over what you can't.
Yeah, and you don't need to go running to lose weight. Like, that's a lot of people sort of put those together. Oh, I want to lose weight, right? I better start running. It's not the case. It's not the case.
Well, especially if you've got issues as well, isn't it? Like running, you put 3 times your body weight through your knee joint.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. And Hayley as well, I would also say if you want to help your mum, hopefully she has asked for your help, because what I would say is it's very difficult to help someone who doesn't want to be helped or isn't ready to be helped. So one of the things you could do is possibly to sort of start to be the example, or lead by example. Or if you would like your mum to maybe get a bit more active, why not get a bit more active yourself, maybe start going out for walks, invite her to come along with you, set an example with your diet, offer to have her over for dinner or over for lunch, or and just sort of help in that way, as in not sort of dictate to her what you want her to do, but just to sort of be an example and set an example and invite her to take part in the same sort of habits that you're implementing.
Yeah, I think sometimes as well, I can. This is when you're in someone's story, so to speak. It's quite hard. Like when you're taking advice from your family, I think it's a hard coaching relationship. So I actually think maybe the same information being fed back, but from a different voice, could be quite powerful. Because I know damn well, my mum and dad are always talking about getting on the healthy nutrition bandwagon, sorting out the mindset, like blah 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 blah. And they've got someone literally here who, do you know what I mean, who can do it, but they still won't listen to me.
Sounds familiar, by the way.
Totally, but it's like, well, I go to them every day. Look at these people who have helped, blah 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 blah, and they're after the same things, but still just won't listen to it. However, if, say for example, Gillian, who saw something thing on the news, they'd go and try that instead. But
Yeah.
because I'm in my parents' story as their son, they won't listen to me, even with what we do and how we do it. So.
Yeah, totally agree. Fancy one more question?
I've got all the time in the world now. So
Oh well, just keep going. We'll just keep going.
I like this.
I know, I love it. I love listening to people's questions. It makes for interesting chats. So let's see. Ailey has asked, if you're in a calorie deficit, how important are the macronutrient breakdowns to the success of losing body fat, and why?
Well, if you're in a deficit, it's going to be moving in favor of fat loss, isn't it, or loss, so to speak. So to be honest, that's the first essential, is getting your calories and your behaviors in check, isn't it? And then the next step up in the pyramid would be then to look at the macros. So it's just another case of if you're trying to improve the control of the results or hone in. So I mean, think of it, the first portion of someone's journey nutritionally, that's all you do, don't you? You just aim for these amounts. I don't really care. Just try and get close to them. And then the next thing, it's like try and hone in, dial in a little bit more. Now try and do X, Y, Z. So
yeah, that's it. I found a really good visual for this one, and I've posted it in my group, and that is calories first. Oh, obviously the mindset around, all that kind of stuff first, which we spoke about before in part 1 of our interview. And then we have calories, and then honing in on things like looking at your protein, your carbohydrates, your fats, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, people sweat the small stuff, don't they? Like, how many times do you get it? Like, what's the best supplement for fat loss? It's like, well, that's great that you're focusing on this. However, your habits are still set to weekend ninja, where you're going out tanning 7,000 calories from Prosecco every weekend. These supplements are going to do nothing for you at the minute.
No, I know, that's it. Supplements are the very, very last thing that you would implement into your routine once everything else is nailed.
Yeah, it's get the 20% of what gives you the 80%, isn't it? Focus on the stuff that really matters.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those, like, that'll be the first step. If you know your calories, then that's the next progression, isn't it? Is let's look at the macros.
Yeah, totally. Love it. Yeah. That was an easy one.
Bang.
Yeah. Lynn has asked a really cool question, actually. In fact, she's asked two. One of them's pretty straightforward. What type, frequency, and duration of exercise would you recommend for an overweight 58-year-old trying to get fit? Thanks in advance.
What do you feel you can personally do at this moment in time?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. There is no prescription in the world that is going to help you to get fit, despite your age, despite your gender, despite whether you're overweight or underweight.
Yeah, it's just
that
start.
Will help unless you find something that you enjoy doing to begin with.
Yeah, I think that's the first step, isn't it? If it's, I think it's exactly what we talked about last time on the first one.
Right.
It's don't create too much. Like, if it's Doreen, who's never been in the gym, don't send her to the gym 5 times a week doing resistance training.
No.
You'd say, what do you enjoy doing? What excites you enough to go, oh, do you know what? I actually want to go and do that today.
Yeah, I would suggest that Lynn... connection issues again.
A class.
Oh, I think we're back.
Yeah, we're good. That was you that time. I take responsibility for this one.
I was just like, yeah, I was going to say to Lynn, I would start out with getting more active, like Simon said before. Perhaps get a hold of a pedometer of some sort and see where you're at just now, and just get out and start walking a little bit. People underestimate the power of that. It can, walking is an excellent way to get fit. If you don't feel confident enough yet that you could try anything else, walking is free. It's great. You can get some fresh air. You can think about life. You can think about what you're having for dinner. You can listen to an audiobook. podcast.
Just as long as there's no hurricanes, Hurricane Brian doing the rounds.
Oh yeah, I
whatever
know,
it was called.
it's actually quite a nice day today here in sunny Glasgow for a change.
I think we've got your weather then.
Oh, have you? Yeah, I know. I'm savouring every moment of the sunshine because we only get 3 hours a year, spread evenly throughout.
When everyone's at work.
yeah, exactly. Looking out the window.
Yeah.
Exercise has got to be something that you enjoy, and I always recommend to people to start with just getting out and walking regularly, see if you can involve some friends and that, make it a bit of a social thing, and then perhaps progress on to trying something that you think you might enjoy, maybe like a dance class or a fitness class or
start with where you're confident.
Yeah, you don't need to force yourself to do stuff that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's for sure.
I tell you what, there's a good little thing. I actually want to bring this up. This is completely off topic, but segues kind of back to the topic in some form. Mm-hmm. A lot of people back when I was personal training and like now when we still see people coming through who are looking to initially start, one of the biggest fears I find that holds a lot of people from actually getting started or going to classes or going to the gym is that they worry about what other people are going to think of them. Mm-hmm. I can shit you not. Every other person is thinking exactly the same thing in a gym. They're not thinking about you looking at them. They're thinking the same thing. So it's like avoid fear, isn't it?
Totally. That was a big thing for me when I first started to go to the gym. Like, I was so self-conscious when I first stepped into my first body pump class. First thing I ever did. It was, and then the more I went, the more I realised nobody's actually looking at me here. Everybody's looking at themselves in the mirror.
Exactly. But that's the beauty of it. I think that's the beauty of these transformational changes. It's like, that's confidence. Confidence doesn't just get given to you. Do you know what I mean? You don't just lose a couple of pounds and then suddenly you're the next confident big thing. Confidence comes and it's honed in from putting yourself in situations where you're not confident, taking action, you get another level of confidence and then keep doing it. And I think that's how you continually develop, don't you?
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, that was my last question.
Oh, win.
I think for this time. So that was really cool. I think we covered loads there. I hope if you're listening and we answered your question, I hope that you have got something out of it and you have got the answer that you're looking for. And if anyone else does have any other questions that you want to throw in the mix for the podcast for the future, I will.
Can I throw in a question that might help people?
Oh, yeah.
I always find, on a lot of podcasts, I've always found this actually helps. Like, for you personally, what's been me asking you, what's the biggest struggle that you found from a coach that you've had to overcome to keep yourself moving forward? Be it mindset, nutrition, what's the biggest thing that you can correlate back, or do you know what I mean, that you've had to do to get yourself moving forward?
When it comes to my body composition or just life in general or coaching life?
Whichever answer you feel is going to give the most value. I just think that hearing a coach get over a struggle provides so much value to the audience.
Oh God, this is really hard to answer on the spot.
It's the beauty of it though, isn't it?
Yeah, I've had so many things trying to pick one thing. I think
it all comes in phases as well, doesn't it? Of where you're at in your own personal stuff.
Yeah. The biggest problem I overcame when it comes to my own body was my health issues. Number one, and actually putting my health issues in front of my body composition choices. Like, that was a big thing for me. Like, I had to sacrifice the desire to look a certain way for the desire to feel a certain way, and to actually sort out my gut health issues or my lack of gut health issues first and foremost, and put my body composition and fitness goals to the side in order to address that. And for that to happen, I had to stop training completely. I had to then go back to training very slowly, which was hard for me. I had to eat completely differently to how I had before. It was very, very strict protocols, and I had to manage other things other than my nutrition, like working on my sleep, for example, and all these things, and fine-tuning all this stuff that's really quite monotonous and boring and doesn't give you instant results, or even remotely instant results. And thinking about actually thinking about what I need to do with my health first and putting that first, that was really hard for me to get my head around.
I think that's such a powerful answer, because I'm so glad I asked you this, because there's so many people who come through our doors and the health never takes the priority. From the businessman to the mother. It's like, you've got no energy. What you're doing to yourself is really affecting your quality of life, but yet you're more interested in losing a little bit of back fat.
Yeah.
It's like, huh. You know what I mean? It's such a complete paradigm shift.
Yeah.
But I think like that's massive. It's the health with anything always has to come first, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's a good answer, powerful answer.
Yeah.
And now look at you dominating all your CrossFit competitions.
I know.
Champ.
Oh God, yeah, I know. It's been such an interesting way of thinking, and this has just been a recent thing, to be honest, because I spent so long, I suppose, on silly diets, just like most women do in their late teens, early 20s, trying to focus on how I looked and what I weighed. That, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if some of those things that I did in the past actually contributed to the ill health that I had. But
same with me.
Yeah,
like,
but you know, getting
past is your past.
Yeah, that's it, and it's you learn
Makes you
something
who you
from
are.
it, and
makes you stronger.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people that come, you'll know this, you'll feel exactly the same way, and you touched on this, but the people that come to us for coaching initially start out with goals of looking and feeling a certain way or losing weight, but a lot of people don't realise how good they can actually feel, how much their health can improve just by making small changes, and then it becomes a completely different thing.
But you don't notice that that's the first place that people see it. Like everyone's like, oh, I'm going to start losing body fat and seeing difference. Like, yeah, that's cool in 3-4 weeks when you can visually see it. But then the first week, 10 days of someone's like journey, I hear that word all the time as well. The journey process, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. It's like, I've got more energy. I'm really awake and alert when I'm with my kids. I've got more focus at work. And and again, a perfect segue and plug back to the first podcast we did. They feel it. Over see it.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. You feel more, and that's if it's the value. You got to get your value to your life. You know what I mean? So,
I'm going to put you on the spot now. I'm going to switch the question around on you and ask you to answer.
I can go through mine because things have happened quite fast with us, and I've obviously with my background I've done quite a lot, so I segment mine into phases, and this is why I love this question, because there's a lot. So for me, I was very physique orientated. The search for I'm not going to say that, but anyway, so the first things first, mine was all about aggressive diets. We were doing elimination things, getting as lean as you could for photo shoots. My biggest struggle there was actually the effect it had on my mindset. So little did I realize was when I was at my leanest, when everyone thought, oh my God, and people associate getting really lean with healthy. No, when I was there, I was not healthy. Do you know what I mean? But so, for example, when I was doing that sort of stuff, I didn't actually realize the effect it'd have on me mentally. So actually getting down there, when you see yourself at that, that becomes your new start point. So when you're at your leanest, you have now re-established that start point of what you should look like every single day. So for about, you know what I mean? So for about 2 years after this, when I was a very naive trainer or whatnot, I was always in search of this. So I got into this habit of like yo-yoing, building a bit of muscle, panicking, getting lean. And now I see so many guys doing that in the gym. They get the six pack, then they aim to build a bit of muscle, then they panic 3 weeks later because they've softened up, and then they go back. And then you just do this whole search for a result and never get there. So that's that one phase. That was my biggest struggle there, was mentally, and it really crushed me. And the other lesson there from the mindset side is I was never actually doing that goal. This is actually quite a personal thing for me to speak about. I was never doing that goal for myself. I was always doing that to kind of prove something. And when I got there, I was like, I don't feel that fulfilled. I've put in all this time and all this effort. I think this is why I could speak about on the first podcast we did quite strongly. I got there. I spent a lot of time and a lot of effort, a lot of money climbing this mountain to only get to the top and realize I climbed the wrong one. Not cool, man. Not cool.
No.
So that was that. Then as body comp grew and took off, then it all became, and now I can really, I think this is why we probably attract or me personally, I get attracted by a lot of business people, is when you're in a gym and when you've got, everything's controllable. But when you're having to jump around, I never saw it. I never wore the shoes on different feet. But when you're having to go to meetings, travel, speak, XYZ, and you lose all of this control, which you're so used to having. That used to be the biggest thing for me. So it was actually, I could really resonate with the people I was working with a hell of a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
But do you know what I mean? And that was my biggest struggle there, was kind of like, I actually used to say, because I used to say to my clients, like, man up, do it.
Yeah.
And then when I was doing it, I was like, oh my God, like, how did I used to say this to people?
I know, I know exactly where you're at, yeah. And you realise, like, when you actually have that similar life, like that running from meeting to meeting and being here, there and travelling, and you think,
exactly,
whoa, I don't live in a gym anymore.
Exactly.
Normal people and the, regular jobs and with kids, husbands, wives, dogs, it's like, sorry, I can't do this because the dog needs walked and the kids need picked up and driven here, there and everywhere, and it's like, and sometimes, that's a big realisation for me as well.
That was lesson 2 and phase 2 of the journey of Psy, the mountain climb of Psy. But that was phase 2. Was actually wearing the shoes on the other foot was really a big thing for me. Still doing that as well. And the third one was actually, I think this again really gets back to the first podcast we did, which is, I'm at a point now where I feel like everything's in line. Everything's in, do you know what I mean? Like, and getting that clarity over everything and really just getting everything in a position where you know you're doing things for the right reasons. You know what value it's going to add to your life. And do you know what I mean? It's that's kind of the big thing for me, is gaining that much self-awareness and awareness of the things around you, that you can get like clarity in all those different areas, be it from your health, family, relationships, and all that sort of stuff. Because at the time, 6, 7, no, God, who am I kidding? 10 years ago, 10 years ago when I was in the gym and all that sort of stuff, in my head, health and physical health was just, here's a nutrition plan and here's some training plan. But now, as I've kind of matured and grown in here, I actually realized like everything knocks on. How you do one thing is how you do another. And actually, like, again, what we were saying on the first podcast, how changing one thing can sometimes be the permission slip to change everything else. And that's what absolutely fascinates me now, is like, we actually don't realize that at the time when we're in the gym, but that's what we can actually do to people. You can genuinely like change someone's life. Massive. If you've got the clarity and the awareness of what they're doing. So I kind of went really off topic on that, but
no,
I'm sure if you can edit really well, you could turn that.
I'm not editing it. Well, God, my editing skills are horrendous. No, I honestly, like, listening to that was like almost listening to a part of I would say one of my phases. God, I've never really thought about it like that before, having phases of things. But yeah,
you grow. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, every time you move forwards, every time your business moves forwards, you have to become a different person for it to move forwards. And again, reflecting, that's another, that could be lesson 4.
Yeah,
actually being able to sit down, reflect, and go, shit, do you know what? Like just doing that exercise then, that's how far I've come. Like, I was I wasn't in a good place here, but now, do you know what I mean? So reflecting is another one.
Brilliant, love it. I love your surprise questions. That was great.
Do another one? Okay, I can keep going with these.
Okay, let's do one. Let's do one more. Let's go for one more.
What topic do you want? Nutrition? What are we going for?
Let's go for a nutrition one.
Nutrition? Oh, cool.
Foods can be.
Well, we both clearly picked up on something along the lines of that, which we both talked about travel and stuff like that. So, for example, when you're on the road and you don't have your control, or when we're traveling, how do you stick to your plan when you're on the road? And I'm going to throw a swerve ball in and go with nutrition and training.
Oh, love it.
How do you make the shit work when you're on the road?
Okay, I have to split this into 2 sections. First section is if I'm only travelling for a short period of time. So let's say like a long weekend, which I do all the time. I am one of those people who plans and takes food with them pretty much everywhere they go. Mostly because...
How many Tupperwares have you got?
Well, not very many that match at the moment. But I think it kind of comes down to my gut health issues, and that I really do need to be quite regimented with it in a way. Not so much anymore, but in the recent past, I've got a really cool like food bag that's like a cool bag. So I make my food in advance, like for a couple of days, and take it in that. Mostly breakfasts and lunches, snacks, and I'll always leave dinners up to chance wherever I am, because if I'm away for the weekend, who knows what's going to happen? You know, people might want to
Nando's.
Nando's. Yeah, people might want to like go out for dinner, and then I can't be like, no, I can't. I need to get my Tupperware out my bag. No, I'm not one of those people. But I like to have the knowledge that I do have food there that agrees with me and that it's there and that kind of thing. So if it's short term, things like service stations and stuff are great for like M&S food. M&S food is as a lifesaver on short term travel.
However, you do need a mortgage. You need to remortgage to buy service station Waitrose.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And just being really mindful about what I eat and enjoying myself. Like if you'd asked me that question 5 years ago, I'd have been like that. Well, first of all, I panic because I won't be able to get gluten-free, dairy-free, nut-free, soy-free, egg-free sandwiches, so I will just not eat. But nowadays, I'm just really flexible, and if I'm going away traveling for...
Can I ask you a question on this that might help your listeners? Elimination, you are currently doing. However, you are only eliminating because of health.
Yes, correct? Because of my health issues. Yeah, I don't do that anymore. I'm gluten-free now because I have, like, I need to be for medical reasons. But other than that, like, I spent too long cutting foods out of my diet and being on strict diets. I enjoy my time away. If I'm travelling long term, so I also do quite a bit of long term travel abroad, and I would say I'm at a stage now where I unconsciously or mindlessly eat well. So it's never really a thing for me. Like I can, rock up to a restaurant or a bar or, wherever I am or a supermarket abroad and put together a meal that's going to make me feel good, like anywhere I go.
Yeah. You see, that's amazing though. That just shows that your conditioning's changed. You've genuinely living proof that you've worked on the habits and the behaviours that long that you don't think about it, but do it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. I get asked a lot, like, how can you just like eat so healthy all the time? But that's not the way I think about it. It's like, I'm just eating. Like, and if I fancy having like a cake or something that other people would deem as being unhealthy, do you know what? I'll just eat it, even if it's every day.
Exactly.
But yeah, travel is actually something I think that's overthought quite a lot. But if you want to stay healthy on the road, or you want to be able to eat, what you would normally eat on the road, it's just a case of a little bit of forward planning, really. If it's short term, a little bit of forward planning, a little bit of enjoying yourself. If you're on holiday, trying different foods, all that kind of stuff. I think about it.
Being okay with that.
Being totally okay with it.
Being okay with that, not beating yourself up, Yeah. It's a drop in the ocean. A week out of a year is a drop in the ocean.
And unless you are eating like an absolute maniac who thinks that there might not be food back on planet United Kingdom when you get back, you'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that question actually, because I do a lot of travelling and I will be. And I often think like overseas travel is an experience when it comes to eating and staying healthy. Training wise, I love going to like other CrossFit gyms. Everywhere I go, I will find I will find a CrossFit gym because that's what I enjoy doing. And luckily there are hundreds and thousands of them all over the world now. So I'll always make sure that I get, just for the fun of it, like if I'm going away for a week, I'll probably go once and then the rest of the time will be exploring, walking. One of the best ways to see a new place is to get out and just walk. And just, yeah.
Totally.
Don't take it too seriously, because I spent a far too big a chunk of my life doing that. So, love that question. You do a lot of travelling now.
Nailed it. Pardon?
Do you do a lot of travelling?
Yeah. Through business and through just life, really. But yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it on the head. I love the fact as well. There's that much like call now for food prep that you can literally get it sent anywhere in the world now.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
So,
there's
okay.
always an answer. You don't. Yeah. And it's becoming so much easier to eat healthily on the road. Like, so many amazing places you can go now to eat that are. Yeah,
and even if you don't, just hit your bloody calories.
Yeah, exactly. Hit your cal if you hit your.
And be okay with that.
Yeah.
And the world will keep spinning.
If you want to eat all your calories on a San Miguel or two.
Actually, this reminds me of a really good conversation. By the way, if I cut out, my battery's gone. So I'll just play a jingle.
That's fine.
Something, do you know what I mean? It's a wrap, and there's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
But that reminds me of something. Yesterday, I was speaking to someone, and this is something that crops up all the time. It's like, for example, if you are eating well and you do have something, like, for example, like if you do have something, like everyone's conditioned to think that chocolate's bad. And muffins are bad, and then they beat themselves up about it, which you don't need to do on that note. But for example, someone was eating really, really well on the plan, or in their head, the healthy labeled foods, and they'd had 2 Mars bars, for example, or something like that. And yet they were freaking out. They're like, "Oh, I'm off my plan. I'm X, Y, Z." And I was like, "Actually, no, you're still on it. You've still got like another 700 calories to go. So stop whining." Yeah. And it's like, just, you know what I mean? That's how it needs to be. So yeah,
totally. Great.
Anyway,
fab. That was awesome. Thanks very much for joining me again. It's brilliant.
No, it's good. It's good.
Really good.
Good synergy. Good synergy.
Yes, very good indeed. Right, we'll wrap this up here. I'll finish the recording.
Cool beans.
Cheers again.
No worries. No worries.
So thanks again, Simon, for that phenomenal chat today on the podcast. Really, really cool. For those of you that are listening, thanks very much. I would really appreciate if you could share this episode, share the podcast with your friends on social media. And I would also appreciate if you could hit iTunes up and leave me a little review. That would be super cool. Just before I go, I wanted to tell you about some exciting things that are happening within Walk the Talk. That is my business. There are lots of cool things happening. One of the coolest things at the moment, I reckon, is that my latest recipe book is out now to pre-order, and I'm going to include the link to that in the show notes so that you can go and order yourself a copy. This is my 5th book. If you do not know what I'm talking about, I have written a series of recipe books called Cut the Crap, No Bullshit Cookery. This is the 5th edition, and I'm really excited about it because I honestly think it's the best one yet. So if you're looking for some really cool healthy recipes that have absolutely no weird ingredients and they are designed to be made within about 30 minutes, recipes that the whole family will eat so that you don't need to cook 3 or 4 different dinners every night, I can guarantee you will find something that you will absolutely love in the Cut the Crap series. So I'll pop the link in the show notes so that you can go and pre-order your hard copy of that. There are only a few left, so make sure you go and do that ASAP. The second cool thing is that Transform 21 is opening again next week for new bookings. So we have one more Transform 21 group in 2017. This is going to be the very last one, and it starts in just a couple of weeks. So if you want to learn about how you can completely transform your life with nutrition, then you need to get signed up for that. I'm going to be opening bookings next week, and that is going to be, let me just get the date for you. If you're listening to this podcast and the date comes out, then you can book Transform 21 from Monday the 30th of October. So I will pop the link to that in the show notes as well. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you again next week. Take care.